In this video, we're going to talk about squatting. Squatting, as you know, is a fundamental component of your workouts. So it all begins with the feet, okay? Now, when you squat, how should your feet be? Some of you may say right next to your hips. So you notice the hip lined up to the foot. And that's pretty good. Now, but it also depends on your hip structure. Some of you may have wider hips. Therefore, your feet have to be placed a little more outside than shoulder width. Some of you might have not so wide hips, so your feet structure changes. So what I'm trying to say is your feet stance, it's going to be as wide, as comfortable as possible. Okay? Now, for Dorian, this is a pretty good stance for him. Okay? So now, let's talk about pointing the feet. Okay? Now, from our understanding, it is best if your feet are turned out slightly. So this way, you may feel a little more comfortable. So then again, when you're walking, do you walk with your feet straight? I don't think so. So why should you squat with the feet super straight? Now keep in mind one thing. When you're squatting, it's supposed to be a normal movement. It's not supposed to feel restricted. If you feel restricted, either change the width of the feet or point out your feet a little bit more. Okay? Now that's going to be rule number one. Step number two, it's going to be the knees. And now this is the most crucial part of the squatting. When you're squatting, once you get the feet done, the next step is going to be the knees. And every time you're squatting in class, I want you guys to always remember to keep the knees out. So Dorian's going to demonstrate what that looks like. Notice what happens. Now, as Dorian does, knees out. Go ahead and do knees out, Dorian. Knees out. Now, knees in. Knees out. Knees in. Knees out. Good. So now, keep in mind one thing. When he does knees out, what ends up happening here is that the glutes end up getting activated. And you feel like your foot wants to raise up from the side. And that's okay. Because when you're squatting, I don't want you to put any of the body weight right on this part of your foot. It needs to be around your foot. And that's why when you do knees out, your foot kind of goes to the side a little bit, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So, again, knees out, good. So his feet are slightly pointed to his height and structure. And the next step is knees out, okay? So now that the knees are out, he can feel his glutes. Right? Do you feel the glutes?
Yes.
Or the butt. He feels the butt getting activated, and that's crucial before you squat. You need to feel the glutes, you need to feel the butt muscle turning on before you can actually squat down. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so the third step is going to be the bracing sequence. And the bracing sequence, how it's going to go down, once you have the feet, once you have the knees in place, the knees out, okay, then the third step is going to be the ribs. Now, if you go ahead and just place your hands right here on your ribs, go ahead, Dorian, and do this. I want you to just do this. Notice how the ribs go in. You feel that? Now that is the braced core. Now that's what you should feel before you squat. So before you squat, I would suggest always place your hands right in the ribs and just feel them. Feel them. If you notice the ribs sticking out, remind yourself to keep them in by just breathing out and now the ribs are in. Okay? But before you squat, you need to always remember to keep a braced stomach tight. Okay? Now from here, the next step is going to be at the shoulder. Okay? And at the shoulder, keep in mind one thing. Shoulders back all the time. Okay? And actually, keep your hands right there, right on the ribs. Squeeze the armpits as hard as you can. Okay? Now, squeezing the armpits is going to automatically remind you to keep your shoulders back. Okay? So now again, let's go back to the beginning. So feet to the width that you feel more comfortable with. The knees out. You see that? Knees out. Okay? Always keep the knees out. That's the most important part of the squat. The third step is going to be ribs in. The fourth step is squeeze the armpits. And what does squeezing armpits mean? It means that pretend you have an orange inside the armpits, and you're going to squeeze the armpits super stiff. Okay? Now that's the position you need to be in before you squat. Just like when you go driving, the first thing you do, what is it? You put the seatbelt on, right? To prevent any well, in case of an accident. And in the squat, we want to put the seatbelt on in the form of getting your body prepared for what's coming, the squat. So your body can actually move a lot easier without it feeling like it's gonna hurt something, or you might feel the knee. If you feel the knees when you're squatting, it's because the body is not aligned properly. So if the body is not aligned, you're gonna compensate by using the wrong muscles, and you're gonna feel pain. And that's not what you want when you're squatting. You want to make sure that every single repetition of squatting gives you back something in return. As in, you gotta feel it. If you don't feel it, it's not working. Understand that? Okay, so with that said, go ahead, Dorian, face this side. So now, do all the 5 steps. Ready? Go. You see? Armpits, everything should be done in less than a second. Okay? Now from here, what he's gonna do, pushing the knees out and keeping everything in mind, he's gonna squat down by leading with the hips. Go ahead, let me squat down. Good, and now come up. Good, now keep going, don't stop. Now what's happening here is, as you notice, he's keeping all the 5 steps in place as he's squatting. And now notice what's happening. As he squats, the most crucial part of the squat is that the hips lead the movement. So the hips lead the movement, and the knees follow the movement. Okay? So when you're squatting, don't think of knees. When you're squatting, think of hips, hips, hips. Hips lead and the knees follow. Okay? You squat in the hips back and down movement. Now notice that the shoulder and the knee always are right on top of each other. Okay? Now when you're squatting, if you notice yourself like that, well, that just tells you that you need to stiffen up your core a little more so you don't fall forward. Chest up. That's what you're going to hear us most of the time say, chest up. Because when you don't bring your chest up, that means you're collapsing. You're putting all the weight on your back. We don't want that. So the stomach is going to push you in to keep you upright. Okay? So once again, Dorian, go ahead. So hips back. The knees are just the helper. The worker are the hips. Okay? And keep going. That's all for this video for today, and breaking down the squat step by step. So again, if you need to go over this again, just go ahead and rewind the video and just break it down, so this way when you're working out, you make it as effective as possible. So this is Cesar with you today, and this is Dorian. Until next time.